Hey everybody, Dr. Ducey here. How are you? Boy, am I lucky. I get to talk to all the best in the world every single day. Who the heck am I? I'm just the guy who picks up the phone and calls people randomly and hope that they don't hang up on me. But you know, we get a lot of goodness out of this. We have a very famous, legendary bodybuilder all the way from Australia, John Terilli, Mr. Universe, and one of the top IFBB pros back in the day. I'll do my little diatribe, then John will do most of the talking because nobody wants to hear about what, I don't have any secrets. They don't want to hear. They don't want the wrong advices, so they're not going to listen to me. Thank you for being here. Listen, as always, if you have any questions, pop them down. I'll answer them. If we can't get to them, we'll shoot you a message afterward. Let us know where you're dialing in from. We always like to know that too. And if you could share this so other people can be edified by this excellent information, I'd really appreciate it. Now, I mentioned the bodybuilders Frank Zane, Steve Reeves, Francis Benfato, Doug Brignoli, and John Terilli. When you think of those types of physiques, you think of the physiques that in all of world history, these are the ones that occupied, in my opinion, the most rarefied air of the pantheon of professional and amateur and all bodybuilding. These are bodies that probably come as close to perfection as possible. And of course, it's in the eye of the beholder. And John and I, just before we went on, we were talking about how, things are different now. And we do talk about longevity here. And basically, what does longevity mean? You're able to do something healthfully and basically the same as you always have for a lifetime. And there's a lot of components that go into that. Youth, health, proper function, exceeding yourself, of course, operating at a very high level, but not at the expense of making yourself haggard, tired, beat up, sick, and even dead. So we try to avoid a lot of that. But we've got John here. John is really a very kind and dutiful guy. I've known him for a while. He got my book last year, so we struck up a little relationship. I do want to mention, we'll mention a couple of times, you want to visit his Facebook group. It's really excellent, classicbodybuilding.com. That's classicbodybuilding.com. And also his website, www.johnterilli.com, to spell his name right out, and you can find out what services he offers, and he'll kind enough will even lend himself to some discourse with you. He'll definitely return your messages. So he's one of those types of guys. You like the word vital, Tom. How are you, Tom? It's always, vitality. Okay. Hey, John, how are you, man? Thank you. I screwed this up. Almost missed you for tonight. That's on me.
No, that's it's cool. It's my pleasure to be talking to you because I know your mindset, and I love everything that you do. I loved your book, Michael. I came into bodybuilding at a time where you'd pick up an Iron Man magazine. Also Joe Weider's Muscle Builder. Arnold holding naked women.
Yeah.
It was all about looking good. I thought this is a magazine on how to pick up women. Paul C. Bragg, he was a health expert. Jack LaLanne, I came in through the health side of bodybuilding. And, from the word go, I knew you've got to make this sustainable. So as far as building a physique, I felt Michelangelo got a lump of marble from the hills of Naples, and he knew what was in that rock, and he carefully chiseled it. That's the approach I took to bodybuilding. It was not just, let's go in the gym, take drugs, train, and let's see what we end up with. That was not how I did it. That's what I think the difference is with today, Michael, of what's going on. You once mentioned to me about smoking, and, if you've been smoking, you stop smoking, your body regenerates. That is what I do. When I started using anabolic steroids, every time I'd come off, I would do a complete clean out. And what I mean by a complete clean out is juice fasting, getting the gut healthy. If you look at all your shampoos, soaps, toothpaste, they've all got a product in there that's called propyl alcohol. Propyl alcohol, for some people's immune system, is just deadly. It's almost like, just imagine a building with fire sprinklers, but the fire is so strong that it knocks out the sprinklers. Well, if you don't have a healthy immune system, and with all the stuff that we eat, how do you think the bins, all the bottles of water, how do you think they're all sterilized? With propyl alcohol. Propyl
John,
alcohol.
I want to stop you based upon something you said. How did you have the clarity of mind way back then to reiterate what you said? And Steve Umberger, thank you guys. John Terilli was a fantastic bodybuilder back in the day, just a terrific competitor. That's somebody who just chimed in. And he's a terrific guy too, Steve. Thanks for being here. How did you have the mindfulness after getting off a cycle, an anabolic cycle, as you stated, to do like a cleanse? Because a lot of guys, they just don't think in healthful terms like that.
Well, Michael, when I was about 9 years of age, I was a fat kid. And right about then, I started realizing, women are a different sex, and I don't think they like the way you look. I was a fat kid. So from there, it started. I started looking at food. When I'd get served dinner, I'm going, well, okay, this is roast beef and potatoes. What on this plate do you feel is going to give you the look that you're after? And so from 9 years of age, I started looking at all of this because I wanted to be attractive to the opposite sex. I wanted to have a sustainable body. When I came into the sport, lucky that I came across people like Jack LaLanne, Paul C. Bragg, and all that sort of stuff. I didn't read about anabolic steroids until I forgot what year it was. Gene Mosey in Muslim Fitness. He did an article on him, and there was a bodybuilder. I didn't know who the bodybuilder was. He's an African American. He looked okay, but it was a bad photo of a guy called Rob Stonewall or something Stonewall.
Rock Stonewall, yeah.
That's it.
Rock. Yeah, well, that wasn't his real first name, but it was kind of a play on the fact that his last name was Stonewall, so Rock Stonewall, right? Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, so that was the photo, and it wasn't a very good photo. So I thought, these steroids can't be that good. Surely, people can be better than this without using them. And then I started thinking, excuse me. I looked at Arnold and going, he's obviously taking them. And I thought that was kind of a turn off. And then I remember thinking, you know what? You want to be in this for the long term. If you want to be really good, there's probably going to come a day when you're going to have to take them. So all this was already thought of. I read about all the side effects. I read all the horror stories.
John, I'm sorry. What age do you start training at, and when did you start training in a gym? I know that I'm kind of cutting you off, but that kind of comes beforehand.
Okay, well, my body was built in the house, not a gym. I did it at home in my bedroom, right, with barbells, dumbbells, opening up cupboard doors and putting a pipe over the top of them for chinning bars, securing the doors at the bottom with a couple of bricks. That's how I built my body. So I had a 19-inch arm before I even visited a gym. 19. Once I visited, my arm was 19 inches tall when I was 17 years old.
Wow, that's extraordinary.
So, well, I started training at about 11 years of age. So I've been doing this for 50 years now.
John, when you were 11 and you were lifting weights, what did people say? Because of course back then, this is probably what, late 60s or something, 70s?
Early 70s. I wasn't lifting weights. That's not how I started training. I didn't know how to train, right?
Oh.
So I saw an American war film. And there was a bunch of the soldiers, doing calisthenics. And I said, that's a good start. Until you learn what you've got to do, start right there.
You recognize this. You recognize this on your own as a kid. You were watching this, and this is what
I was just watching a movie.
Wow.
And I'm trying to figure out, how do you start all of this?
Right.
And when I saw that, push-ups, jumping jacks, all that sort of stuff, that's how I started. So, I didn't do traditional training. Right. I didn't know what sets and reps were. I once read in Iron Man how to train your chest. They didn't have any photos. So I remember reading, okay, well, prone bench press, 4 times 12. And going, what does that mean? Prone bench press. So I thought prone means you're laying down and you've probably got to press a bench. So I used to lay down and press the coffee cup.
John, I've actually got a member he goes to a park right now because everybody's under lockdown. He gets under a bench in the park and he benches a bench. So there you go. Maybe you influenced him from back in the day. in an inadvertent way. That's how it works.
Yeah.
But you
I then
remember,
graduated. Sorry.
I mean, you do remember how unpopular bodybuilding it was back then. I mean, it wasn't really embraced or accepted, and there was a lot of resistance if you were a kid working out. I know there was for me here in Connecticut in the United States.
Yeah, we had all the same problems here in Australia. You know, the business of no coach wanted you to lift weights because it being muscle bound and all that sort of stuff, which was all garbage. So, you know, it was exactly the same over here. We were getting all the American bodybuilding magazines. You know, I probably know more about American bodybuilding than most Americans. That's how I grew up.
That's not a stretch at all. Were you a healthy kid growing up? Good general health? I mean, you didn't really have any health problems?
Look, I probably may have had some health problems, but I was not that type. I just figured, look, if you're not feeling good, you know, read these magazines, learn how to eat, drink more water, sleep better. That's, you know, just the basics. So
same stuff that works today, basically, when you think about it, you know, as far as the basics go. So you obviously, if you had a 19-inch arm at 17, somebody probably grabbed you and said, hey, man, you should compete, right?
Exactly. As soon as I visited the gym, which was actually a boys' club, it was a youth club. Somebody saw me doing lying extensions with 120 pounds in my school uniform. And, you know, he just kept looking. And then eventually one thing led to another and somebody approached me. And that's how it all started.
Did you play any other sports, or was just bodybuilding? That was it?
I was unbeatable in sprinting. No one could beat me in sprinting.
No kidding.
I played football and destroyed my knee.
Oof.
So that was the end of my sporting career and running. So then it just became weights and being healthy and, you know, doing this to look healthy, pick up women, and look good. Once one of those three are gone, what are we doing it for?
Well, you know, the sad thing is too many times the guy ends up picking up a woman and then he's done. So that's usually that in and of itself is not enough to sustain you over a lifetime. But obviously, then you discovered that you had the knack to go pretty far. When did you know that, you know, you could be like a top level guy, at least in Australia to begin?
Well, you know, from talking to other people, I didn't really know how good I was. And, you know, when I opened up a magazine, to me, it was all about chasing Arnold. So when I went into my first Australian contest, I had no idea who was going to be there. I'd heard stories. My head was, you're going to run into somebody that looks like Arnold, you know, and that was not the case.
So you won that, right? Your first show?
No, I got second in my first show. That was, my first show was one of these youth clubs. They got all the youth clubs and they held a contest for all the kids. And that show was fixed. So
it was.
Well, it was, you know, one of the officials told me.
Wow.
So I knew from the beginning, this is what you're getting involved in. So whenever I got screwed over at a show, I just felt this is part of what you do.
Right. Did anybody advise you? Like you mentioned the anabolics and whatnot, and the training and the food, or were you pretty much on your own?
You know what? I was pretty much on my own. Over the years, I've had people who I've considered coaches and they've taught me something. I've had friends who have been doing this as long as what I have, and we discuss things and, you know, try new ideas and whatever. My parents first were against it all. Then, you know, they started helping me when they saw this guy's gone nuts. He's not going to stop. Well, you know, when
Hey, John, did your mother do like Arnold's mother did when he brought his first trophy home? She put all the trophies in her apron and ran from house to house showing everyone. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I read. Yeah, I mean, your parents were happy that you started doing well, right?
Well, they were kind of worried because to them, doing well was what these guys in the magazines that are all over the house are doing. So that's what worried them. They didn't realize there was another level below that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they didn't know.
They didn't know, and when I brought the trophies home, they said, "All right, well now you've won something. Are you going to continue doing this?" And I said, "Yeah, well I will." Then when I won the nationals, they said, "Okay, well now you should stop." Then they thought I'd really gone mad. They said, "Now he's done this in Australia. Now he's going to go overseas and continue this." Right? So but when I came back with that universe title, then it all changed. They had no choice.
John, were you a good student, or were you focusing on school, or you just did high school and got out and that was it?
I was not a good student. I had my strengths. I was good at art. I was good at English. Wasn't really interested in anything else except reading bodybuilding magazines.
You followed your heart, and that's why you did so well. And most people, it's a risk. It's a very big risk, but that's why you ended up exceeding yourself and became one of the best. And you could always have that in your head. You didn't compromise, because people are never going to give you the right advice. They're going to give you advice that's good for them, and they're kind of putting it on you. There's very few people who can kind of put themselves into your body and tell you what's truly good for you, and that's why you're on your own. That's probably why it's appropriate, because bodybuilding is something you do on your own, I think. So when is it that you became the best? You were the best in Australia. You won the universe. And does Joe Weider call you up and fly you out? How's that work?
No, what happened after I won the best in Australia, I competed in Manila. Was not in great shape, but I made the top 6, and I thought that was a really bad placing. So I was feeling quite dejected after the contest, and I sat backstage looking at all these guys, and I looked at them and I thought, there's something missing that these guys are doing and I'm not. I'm not sure what it is, but surely it's got to be more than anabolic steroids. And as I looked at him, I said, I've kind of approached this, but I've not been able to hold it. God forbid what I'd have to go through, how many years it's going to take. So I trained for about another year and a half. Naturally, I got as big as I could. And, then I did my first cycle. And, it was really scary. All I was taking was a little bit of Dianabol.
Right.
And I thought, wow, now you've really done it. You're taking this stuff. Where are you going to end up with all of this? And, from the previous things, I did a lot of study, Michael, and I've done courses. I've gone back and studied nutrition. I've studied a lot of different things, NLP, neuro-linguistics programming. So school was a waste of time for me. I did the basics. I finished high school. And then, I went from one thing to another, studying architecture, then this, then that. And, I didn't like any of it. So that's, most of the stuff that I've learned is on my own.
Hey, John, when you first took that Dianabol, like you said, what were your gains like?
Well, I didn't think the stuff worked.
Really?
Right. So then one day, my training partner and I were taking the same stuff, same amount of tablets. We went up to 3 a day. And we went to the gym one day, and I'm saying, well, we're going to continue with this. I don't think this stuff works. What's it supposed to do? So we weighed ourselves on a scale, and we thought the scale was broken because we were both 15 pounds heavier.
Wow.
At about 2.5 weeks of using that. And I thought, then somebody heard us talking. They got on the scale and they said, well, it's not broken for me. This is what I normally weigh. Then I looked at my training partner and I said, you know what? These weights are feeling a little bit lighter than usual.
Yeah.
And we just both weighed 15 pounds heavier. Could it be this stuff? That was my first experience.
But that, even still way back then, it's a totally different story now. I mean, back then they were legal with a prescription. You were getting them from a pharmacy. They were, legitimately produced. They had paperwork that came with them. And now, of course, you might get stuff made from somebody's bathtub and you just don't even know what you're getting. So at least it was kind of a control mechanism. You knew what you were eating. You knew what you were taking. You were plotting and methodical. You had these goals and whatnot. But going back to that, so then you started doing real well. And you won the Mr. Universe. What year was that?
That same year. So, yeah, that same year I won the NABA Amateur Mr. Universe, my height division, and that was 1982.
Now, were you the best? Were you the best in Australia at that time?
I would say yes.
Because Lee Priest must have been only like maybe 3 or 4 years old at the time.
Well, yeah, I think he may have been born then. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I'm only kidding. You know, because Priest. I mean, there's some good bodybuilders from Australia, but I mean, you first and foremost come to mind as far as being the best, or at least among the best. But then, so finally, you went out to Joe Weider. But yeah, I want to talk about your a couple of brushes you had with Lee Haney on stage, and one time you actually almost beat him, and that was when he was Mr. Olympia. But did you deal with Joe? Joe brought you out to California.
Look, I never.
Frankly, John, you had that look, very marketable look. You know, good-looking guy, a body that anybody would. You know, actually, that's really come back today. You know, it's going back to that. You know, the physique type of presentation versus 300 pounds. But I would think Weider would probably want to put you on the magazine covers and whatnot.
Yeah, look, he did some photo shoots with me. I had been picking out. I couldn't even hold my stomach in, so he didn't use all the photos. I got a lot of publicity, but I didn't know how to play the game. I didn't know that I had to throw myself at him.
Yeah.
Or,
what I've heard.
He did talk about, have you ever thought of moving over here? And this was in the middle of a photo session. And, after what I had already seen, it was not a very appealing thing. If it had been a little bit more mechanical and set up correctly,
right?
And I had somebody who was really wanting to help me, not just hang around with me so they could ride along with me, it would have been different. But I wasn't prepared for it.
John, when were you at your best as a bodybuilder, and what kind of injuries did you experience over the years, if any, from training and just going through the whole thing for all those years?
Look, most of my injuries were outside the gym. Hardly any. A couple of times I put my back out, bending over to pick up a light weight, and a couple of years ago, I was unracking an incline, and my shoulder gave way, but I had been in a car accident. I'm not sure how that actually happened, but most of my injuries, Michael, are from outside the gym. Inside the gym,
in your competitive years, did you go really heavy training, or would you say moderate with the weights?
Look, I knew how to train, but there's a thing called the ego. So if one of my competitors or somebody's already threatened me and they're in the gym training heavy, I've got to beat them, right? I forgot to leave my ego at the door.
Right.
So, yeah, I did all the heavy stuff. And, that was a period of time where I actually didn't make very good gains. My arms, for instance, was so strong, Michael. I know that Arnold was able to curl 280 pounds for 3 reps. So I matched that. I was doing lying extensions with 3 plates on each side. I was never strong in bench press, but I did some heavy training. Now, in order for me to keep growing, I had to halve those weights, or even less than half. A lot less. And
John, would you say
what
that
I was doing?
even John DeFendis was saying this, and Frank Zane has told me also. You've got to decide when you go in the gym, are you there to move weight or to build the muscle? And I think that's kind of what you're saying, right? I mean, if you knew how to train, meaning you knew how to train the muscle instead of just flipping weights around and, you're kind of going to the gym to work your joints when you go too heavy, not even hitting the muscle.
Well, exactly. The muscles don't know how much weight is on the bar, Michael. Muscles work by contraction. So to me, the whole story looks like this: contraction, nutrition, recovery.
I like that.
Nothing about lifting heavy weights. You can make the weight feel heavy on the muscle. The muscle does not know whether you're lifting a bucket of water or a weight. It just knows how well it's being contracted. Now, if you can contract the muscle really good with 20 pounds, going to 50 pounds, you're still doing it, but you know, you're not feeling it any longer. So like that's,
No. You know, to the muscle, the weight is just an abstract to the muscle. You know, the amount of weight, and it's how you make it feel. And you gotta load it to a certain degree. But yeah, if you're not getting that contraction, what was that? It was contraction, nutrition, recuperation. Was that the three?
Exactly.
Yeah. I like that. And you know, just jumping forward, your clients and people you work with. I was mentioning with somebody the other day, when you have that hierarchy that you mentioned, I see a lot of younger people. They never ask about nutrition, training, or supplements. They ask right off about drugs. You know,
what do you take? What do you take? That's the first thing they want to know. I remember once I went to a seminar on real estate, and the kid next to me realized who I was. He wasn't training. He didn't know how to eat, but he wanted to know what's the best supplement that he could take to lose body fat.
Right away. That's it.
Right
That's
away. You know,
the pill mentality that exists now. People want to hear about, because I've seen some pictures, and you really, you know, and pictures are not the same as being there. But when you stood with Haney in Vegas and you ended up taking second, there were a lot of people who thought that you had beaten him, you know, and he was Mr. Olympia at the time. But what were your thoughts back then at that point right there?
Well, for starters, I didn't think I was in good shape. It all just happened at the last minute because I kept hammering away at what I was doing because I knew I was running late. So I was nervous. I didn't expect any of it, you know, and I told you straight after that, no, actually before that, I had already made up my mind. I've got to get out of this. I've got to find an appropriate way of leaving what I have started. Don't just walk out and give up. Find some way out of this. But what I used that time for, Michael, was for studying the body, learning stuff. I didn't mind taking a hit at a contest and not placing well, as long as I was able to experiment with what was going through my head. So eventually, after I've done this for a number of years, I thought, you know what? The time has come. If you really know what you're doing, put something together this year, get into that sort of shape that they want to see, win the show, and get the hell out of here.
And you were,
Michael, I had some close calls.
Well, let me ask you a question. You were talking about sleeping. Why were you having? Because I just did an article on sleep. Why were you having such a hard time with the sleeping, like you mentioned? Was there a reason behind that, do you think?
Look, I was not in Los Angeles. I was not in Gold's Gym. I didn't see what was going on. And every day I'm here in Australia and I'm thinking, you know, look, what's going to happen when you get there? And, you know, how are you going to do this? And how are you going to do that? And it would keep me awake at night. You know, it was impossible. It was almost impossible to go to sleep with this thought process of how I'm going to do this. There was a lot of unknown. I wasn't even supposed to be competing in that contest. You know, wow. Paul Graham calls me and he says, look, they're shooting a movie, The Second Pumping Iron. Get in shape. And it was not the right thing to do. You know, I just, it was just thrown at me. There was no preparation, really.
You won the show that was held. It was, what was it called? The Best in Australia?
Yes.
And that was a day before the 1980 Mr. Olympia. Congratulations.
It was an hour.
What's that?
It was 1 hour before.
Oh, 1 hour. I'm sorry, 1 hour before. So you hung out and you observed. So, you know, I'm sure this has been asked, you know, this is still contested to this day, you know, that 1980 Olympia where Arnold came and decimated the hopes of all the other champions. But what was your take on it that day? I mean, you were right there. You got a good seat. You sat there and watched the whole thing, right? I mean, was Arnold, did you, now before that, did you ever see Arnold at his best before that? Or you only saw him that day?
Not live. I'd seen him guest pose once before in Sydney, Australia. And he was training for the 75 Mr. Olympia, and he was increasing his body weight because I think he just finished shooting Staying Hungry. And I could tell he was not at his best. And that was acceptable. You know, Ken Waller also posed with him. But in 1980, after we had gotten used to seeing, you know, all the photos and everything, Arnold was definitely in his worst ever competitive shape, for sure. He was off. But you know what? He was still better than everybody else.
No kidding. So him at his not his best, maybe 80% or whatever, was still better than what everybody else had. And you were there.
I think so. Look, I was there. He had that shape. When people bring up, oh, so-and-so should have won and so-and-so should have won, I'm not sure what to say to them, because I think they're delusional, you know.
Delusional. Yeah, you know, things really changed. Then, of course, you had Franco the next year. That was a different story. But
well, look, I don't know what happened there. I heard that no judge gave him first, but he got these consistent seconds, and everybody's places were all over the joint, and he ended up winning. You know, and as much as people want to put him down, you know, there was a lot of poses and a lot of, you know, in a relaxed round, standing relaxed front on. There's a lot of poses that people couldn't match him with, but there was a lot of good bodybuilders there as well. There was Danny Padilla, Roy Callender, Chris Dickerson, Tom Platz.
Right.
You know, it was a pretty good contest, and it was pretty tough.
Well, it's amazing that you were there. That's part of history. And, you know, you can't tell from pictures. I mean, I've been to a lot of shows, been in them, judged them, and there's nothing like being there and seeing every position and the whole thing. It's just a totally different synopsis that you develop. So you finally, that was your last show that you were mentioning earlier. That was it. You were done.
My last show was the 1994 Professional Mr. Universe. I won that, and I got out.
You got out on a winning note. Very smart. Yep. So take us up to today now. You've been in business for a long time, and you help a lot of people get in shape, all walks, not just bodybuilders, right? And you've owned a couple of gyms, and tell us about what's going on now these days, because you're still in great shape, even though, you know, you tell us about a couple of your injuries you had to get around.
Look, at the moment, see, Michael, what I'm going to say now, this is a part of bodybuilding that's missing today. Now, you know, I've told you all the operations I've had, and I had 3 back-to-back operations on my right shoulder. It's still not 100%, but it's getting stronger with weights, and, you know, it'll all be good. But when I took my arm out of that sling, this arm measured 14.25 inches. Now,
wow.
They're almost 17 inches. My weight has not really shifted. Right now, if you speak to anybody today, it's all about gaining weight.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think anybody realizes you can actually grow a muscle without putting on pounds and pounds and pounds of weight.
Absolutely.
And I'm in the process of rebuilding myself and getting myself back to the best that I can be. Then I've got this protocol where I break the year up into 4 3-month lots. And what I want to do is every year, I want to have 3 months where I let my body relax, recuperate, do all the fasting, cleansing, and all that sort of stuff, and maybe concentrate on yoga and a bit of weights here and there, and just really let the body recuperate and recover. Then the next 3 months would be sort of a building phase or a phase where you concentrate on the basics. Then 6 months leading into summer, you do what you got to do to look the best on the beach.
Yes.
Okay. And pretty much I'm saying this is something that I would normally do. And I've actually done this over the years, but this is a protocol that I've actually got worked out, which will help many people. You know, so when somebody comes to me and look, I've got this in mind a year away or whatever, I try to get them to understand each phase and how it's going to benefit you, and how we're going to recover from this, how we're going to do bad things, perhaps, and you know what I mean by bad things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, but there's got to be a time where there's a cleansing of the whole system.
I want to address that, but I just want to say hello to Rob Harrop. Rob Harrop, a great bodybuilder from not so long ago. He says, great show. Will Canetty, hey, Will, just got out of surgery a couple hours back. All went well. Reattached all 4 quads. Wow. And Carrie, his wife, Scott, is home from surgery. We're casting this to our smart TV. Wow, TV. I don't know. I didn't really take care of my. John looks really good, but I'm pretty close. That could be startling if my head is on a big TV. Hi, Carrie. You look great, Carrie. By the way, John. Let me ask you a question. That protocol, is that employable? Let's say you get a person that comes to you and they're 50 or 60, and they're buried under a metaphorical, just masses of sadness, fat, dysfunction, poor physiology. They've never done anything good for themselves, or they used to be in shape many years ago, but they're so far afield from being in shape. I mean, obviously you could look at them and in your head, you know that they can get back, but they're not believing it. What do you do with someone like that, restoring their longevity or their health or their fitness?
Well, I talk to them for a while, okay, and I try to get into their head to see what they're really all about, and I discuss different things. And then depending on what their goal is, I'm very big on goal setting. So, the first thing we will do is do a body fat test, possible blood tests, and start looking at nutrition immediately. This is before we even talk about training. Lifestyle, nutrition, movement, medical history, body fat test, and really let them see where they're at. So, if some guy's 30% body fat, you've got to make them understand, and right, how long it's going to take to get in shape, because even the best athletes, they're on drugs. Some people don't take drugs. It always averages out to about 0.5% body fat loss per week. So if you're 30% body fat and you want to compete in 3 months, I'm going to go, well, okay, let's work it out on a calendar. You're going to average out at 0.5% a week if you train really hard and listen to everything. So at 0.5% a week, how many weeks is it going to be before we get to a single digit number? Right. So right then and there, that's how we build that plan.
John, how many people actually follow through? Because John Defendis, John Romano, this past last week, he was saying, I asked him, I go, what does it really take? And he said, listen, you must get to the point where you suffer, true suffering to get in, contest shape. And not just the regular people who want to regain their health. How many people are, they say they set out to do that. John says so few actually follow through once they find out how hard it is. Because like you were saying earlier off camera, so many people are just asking about a pill or, what do I take? And the hard work ethic isn't there. I mean, you really can't instill that in a person, can you?
Look, by talking to them and letting them see the figures and making them understand what it takes, what generally happens is they'll be chugging along doing this, and the suffering part, you've got to work them into it. And you get to a point where you go, well, look, this is how far we've gotten. Now you're not moving any further. Are you prepared for this? And at that stage, they'll usually say yes, or they will change their goal.
Right.
So it's just it's a matter of psychology, really.
Do you get them off the, if you do a health profile, are you successful in getting them off the cigarettes and the alcohol and some of the bad habits right off the bat, or do you let them kind of wean themselves off slowly?
It's always about weaning off.
Right.
I never go cold turkey on anything.
That doesn't work. It just doesn't work. No, you
look,
can't.
It may for some people, but generally, you can't turn their lives upside down. What I'll first ask them to do is, you think you could get down to under 10 cigarettes a day? Can we aim for 7 cigarettes? That'll probably be the first thing I'll try to do if they're smoking. If they're smoking tobacco.
You said something earlier, sustainability.
Well, Michael, you've said this before, and it's a common thing. How many 80-year-olds do we know that are 130 kilos?
None that I know of. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Math, you cannot fight math And the human body doesn't, like, you've got this movement now, you know, fat acceptance and don't go by how somebody looks. Listen, sometimes that's the only barometer we have, you know, how somebody projects. And your body and the heart and your physiology and your blood panels, they don't care about, you know, your ethnicity or how you think you're supposed to eat, or, you know, I have a right to be this size. Because when the heart takes a break, that means you're not coming back. So I think, you know, obviously it's incumbent in your responsibility to let people know that. Hi, Jim. And hey, I knew you were Scott Candace and not William. I was just messing with you. And Scott Candace is a great competitor. He's been around a long, long time. He's dealing with some knee injuries, but, you know, no doubt you're going to come through, Scott. John, let me just jump for a second. Who was your most formidable? Who were the couple of guys that you had the most trouble with competing against? Like the guys you worried about, or the guys you knew? You know, there's some guys obviously totally different body types, so you wouldn't look at them that way. But who would those people be?
They were Australian guys that you've never seen. One of them.
Oh, no kidding.
His name was Ivan Drelich. He actually. I
remember who he is.
Ivan Drelich.
Yeah.
In one show, you know, Roger was competing in the 1979 Mr. Olympia, and 2 weeks before that, he competed in a Pro-Am show in Australia, and Ivan beat him.
No
and
kidding.
Then 2 weeks
Wow.
later, Roger dialed it in, and he placed in the top 6 of the Olympia.
Do you know Roger personally? Do you know Roger?
Yes, I do.
You see him around? How's he doing? I haven't heard from him in a long time.
Roger's doing well. He's a quiet person. He's a really nice guy. You know, last time we spoke was we actually got to know each other really well about a year and a half ago. We actually met up. Otherwise, I used to see him in the gym. It was high and by, and I used to hear a lot about him. He, you know, had a few health problems. Now he's good as ever, and he's working on this boat. That's his exercise now. He's got this boat that he's renovating. Yeah.
That's good to hear that guys are doing well, you know, because especially when you don't hear from or about them anymore. But going back to training and training people, so where are you going? What's the future? You had a couple of gyms, you said at one point.
Well, Michael, now the other day my website went live, and we were talking off camera before about that section in your book where you've got to be in a position where you don't need to depend on anybody. That has allowed me now to choose instead of just grab whoever comes along to make money. Now it's not about that anymore. It's about who I want to work with and how much help do they need. Am I really going to be able to help this person? And everything now becomes a project of passion.
That's excellent. That's the best. You know, you never want to put yourself in a position as far as where you have to. Maybe in younger years, because that's just paying your dues. But you want to set yourself up. You don't want to put yourself at disadvantage. It's as simple as that. We've got some young people we know, and a couple of them, they're having kids without getting married. Maybe that's the way it is now, but they don't have good jobs. They don't even have houses. And listen, I love the sanctity of life. I celebrate life. I don't kill bugs. Dogs seemingly like to bite me, but I won't kill them. I won't hurt anything. But you're bringing life in, and listen, you're making it you're getting yourself in back of a stone, a rock. You'll probably never get out from it. The odds are against you. And people can say, oh, well, that's not, they can run. Yeah, it's possible. But the odds, as we see things in society now, you're just making things much harder for yourself. So yeah, you position yourself as you go, and you know you got yourself out of those 2 gyms, and they served you well for a certain amount of time. But you freed yourself up to ply your wares with sanctity of mind and with your ability to choose candidates that work well with you, that make your day better. The likelihood of them succeeding is much higher, and you can keep doing that. It's like when I was in practice, it was a very busy practice, but if you have a bunch of patients who don't cooperate or don't listen, you're in a sea of people in pain, and you don't feel like you're effective. You want to get to the point where if somebody gives you a heart, they're not meant to be with you, you can put your hand up and say, next. And that's what you've done. So you, right, in a sense, is that correct?
I will bend over backwards to help people.
No, no doubt, absolutely.
That's my nature. And you know, and if they've got psychological problems and they're acting badly, you can't just leave them.
No.
You know, that's, you know, there's a verse in the Bible where it says if you see someone stumbling to their death, you must help. You can't just stand there and watch.
No.
Right.
That's called you're strengthening your sphere. Whatever your ability and how far it extends, it's your responsibility to lift those people because you can. You're not going to watch them ride. You know, we think about the sociopath that would watch a person squirm and writhe and not lift them, especially since they can't. They're no threat to you. They're lower than you. That's called right thinking. But you know, that's a whole other deal right there. But yeah, you freed yourself up. Let me ask you a question. The average person that comes to you who's they've really fallen out of shape, and it happens. It's happened to me when I've gotten ill a few times. What do you mentioned psychology there for a second. Is there some type of psychogenic cause as to why a person would fall so far afield from just even being, you know, regular health? I mean, is it usually piled up as far as anguish or anger, or there's issues or something happened, or is it just laziness?
Well, look, I'll give you a line that I heard Arnold say when he shot one of his Terminator movies. There was a 10-year gap, and he explained what happened every year, why it took 10 years for him to film the next one. You know, this year this happened, then we couldn't do this, we could do that the year later. So it's like, you know, it was a building process to get there, right? So people's lives are kind of like that way, Michael. You can set goals, but at what cost are you going to be single-minded to reach that goal and let the rest of your life fall apart? Now, Arnold's a goal-orientated person. So when I heard him talk about that, I said, you know, you're going to have to take things a little bit easier, because even he probably wanted to shoot that movie a couple of years later, but it took him 10 years to get it all correct and set up correctly. So I work with people. You know, it's almost like I am a psychologist, but I'm not.
You're right.
I study psychology. I study psychology simply because I want to know, why did that person do that? What could have caused him to do that? You know,
that's hugely it's hugely important as to why people do what they do. You know, you could take your average gym and you could take a whole battery of mental health professionals, and they'd have a field day as to why people do what they do. I was talking to one of the pros the past couple of weeks, and we were talking about like boxers. When you go in and you try to render somebody unconscious, it's pretty barbaric. I mean, you know, I admire the sport, but you don't come out of like, you know, growing up with a nanny or a butler, and you're drinking tea and you had it really easy. You came out of probably some roughly hewn circumstances that made you claw and scrape and beat people up. And it's the same thing with people who work on their body. Why would you, what is the reason? Why are you torturing yourself beyond the pale, the normal confines of physicality, to warp yourself like this? And believe me, I wanted to do this for a long. I found out early I couldn't get that big, so I became the best mediocre bodybuilder in the world, which isn't really a boast. But why? Listen. So you've got to, when a person comes to you, and I'm speaking rhetorically because you know this. You got to figure out why they're really there. And I think that's one of the ways you can discern whether they're going to be successful or not. Is that true or no?
Well, look, I'll give you one example. A early 30-year-old guy came and saw me. I went through the whole thing. If I looked like him at 30, and all he wanted, he goes, no, I don't want to do any of this. And I go, well, what are you after? He goes, oh, I just want to have a bit of fun in the gym, hit the boxing bag, you hold the gloves, do this and that for me. And I said, no, that's not what I do.
No.
It's not what I do. And I said, I can't help you.
Well, that was good, because you could have just took his money and it would have never worked out. You wouldn't have had a good referral.
It worked out.
he wouldn't have showed up. You know, you would have lost time, which is the real currency right there. I could tell, you know, in my longevity business, and it's kind of high end because I want people who are serious. But right away, if somebody, you know, they'll approach, or maybe they'll approach you, John, they'll say, well, you know, John, I'm thinking about doing this or that. They're equivocating. They're not convinced that they haven't bought into it. So you know they're not a candidate right there. You almost have to be crazy.
I mean, I always educate. You educate the person, you tell them, you try to figure out how can I get this person to absorb what I'm saying. I do my best to get them to understand. Other than that, you know, you've got to give them a chance.
Right.
Sometimes people have come to me and we thought this is the wrong fit, but you know, as we discuss and I follow up and everything, you know, this is a client now that I've had for 3 years, you know, and we almost didn't connect. So it took a little bit of time. You've got to manage things. I'm not chop this, start this, don't give them a chance. You've got to nurture.
Do you go to bodybuilding contests at all anymore, John?
Yeah, and it's a little bit hard to go to them. Sometimes I judge, sometimes I go and watch. I don't last very long. This is just look. I know you've got to have all these classes in order for the promoter to make money, and you know they are making money because they're collecting fees from all the competitors.
Hand over fist.
They're charging for the pre-judging. They're charging you for the night show. So you can't ask a promoter, listen, can you get rid of most of these classes and just have this? You know, I remember a time where you'd go to the pre-judging, you'd watch it, go home, you'd be calling your friends and saying, hey, come back tonight, so-and-so may win.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and you'd show up for the night show and you were entertained.
Yeah.
Now it's like the pre-judging runs into the night show. It's like, when is all this going to stop?
It's like 2 or 3.
So it's very difficult to go to a contest, but you know, as long as the promoters are making money and the participants are willing to put themselves through this, what do I do?
You know, I think it's good to have it's good to have something to train for, I think. You know, my first show was 1979. I was 15 years old. Mike Katz bodybuilding show here in Connecticut, and I still have the paperwork. $10 to enter. That was it. The entry, you know, you could bring somebody to help you. That was the whole thing. $10 back in '79. I don't even think that was a lot back then.
Yeah.
You know, and it was, you know, there was only 3 trophies for the whole show. There was, you posed when there was no music, so you hope people clapped. And for me, it took 10 years for people to clap, you know, for me to show enough muscle. So it was, you know, there was a guy once who actually posed back then when music started, and he had a soundtrack. Every 10 seconds there'd be applause, and he posed to that. So he had his own applause. You know, that's the type of guy you probably don't want to work with. So John,
yes.
What is your client? Is your clientele both men and women, or do you stick with one particular type of athlete, older, younger?
You know, at one stage it was mostly women. Now it's a lot more men. I still do some women, and it's always changing because it's like, you know, some people you just can't work with.
Right.
That's all there is to it. You know,
I'm sorry. Are you guys shut down there right now? Is everything still on lockdown? Like gyms aren't open?
All the gyms are closed.
They're all closed.
They're allowing personal trainers in parks.
Really?
With, you know, training 10 clients at a time, 1.5 meters apart. They're allowing for that.
Wow.
There's some gyms where you're allowed, if you do classes, you're allowed 10 in a class with the right distancing. You know, as much as what I'd like to agree with everybody who wants to get back in the gym, they're probably one of those places. It's, you know, you're breathing, you're blowing, you're sweating all over the equipment. You know, like germs permeate into the leather of the equipment. We're not ready to open.
Yeah, there's a lot of people don't wash their hands after using the bathroom too. So, you know, then you're compounding with all. I wear gloves, and people, they have that joke, oh, do your gloves match your purse? I'm like, well, look, you know, you don't wash your hands after using the bathroom, so I got my gloves on, man. So yeah, you're right. And I don't know. You got to take care of yourself. You got to make sure you're healthy. I think one of the things that's not really talked about is you don't want to be obese and have all those comorbidities, you know, the heart disease, the high blood pressure, the diabetes. So right away, your immune system is shot. Guy like you know, you're not an old guy, but you know, you're not 35 either, and you're in exemplary condition. People will say to you, or they'll even say to me, young guys said to me in the gym, I want to look like you when I'm your age. I go, you don't look like me now. He's like 20. So you got kids that are, listen, again, if you're this heavy, that's not healthy. And you know, your body gets tired of fighting off all of those invaders, you know, the fat, the breakdown metabolites from the fat, the cortisol, all that. And your immunity, you can't even fight off a flea. So of course it's going to be dangerous going out there. And you would hope people training in gyms are better prepared. But like you were saying earlier, you don't have to gain a ton of weight to build muscle. And you see these people still piling on tons of body weight. You still see that? Or
well, look, to a certain extent, like even with me now, I'm figuring if I've got to get back to where I was before all the surgery, I'm probably going to have to go from 200 to maybe 220,
wow.
if that maybe 215. But then at some stage, I'd probably like my weight to come back down while I'm holding as much usable size as I can. That's my goal. So, you know, because what I did notice, I can go for long periods of time without training and the body holds together, because I guess it's from all the years. Now, I want to get back to that, because if I feel like having a month off or going on vacation and not touching anything, I want to be in that position where it's all sustainable.
Will you do that if you go away for a couple of weeks? You just won't do any working out?
Well, I mean, you know, Michael, you know, my wife's like really into fitness and everything, and you know, even my friends. And if I go on vacation with one of these people, this was when I owned gyms. You know, they're in other fields. So go on vacation, their whole thing is, I'll be able to train twice a day. And I'm going, oh no. You know, I want to sit by the pool.
Yeah.
I want to relax in the sun. I want to go swimming.
Yeah,
I want to drink a cocktail.
Yeah. You know, it's funny that old thing. You know, my girl and I went on vacation once, and it was one of those things where we had to follow a tour guide where they kept going, we're moving. And I looked, I go, this is not vacation. This is like we're going on a march every day. And it's, to me, I just listen. What is vacation? Are you kidding? Same with training. We go to a place in Miami called the Fontainebleau. It's a really beautiful hotel, and they've got all the amenities. I plan on eating 6 times a day and training each day. And I end up eating 2 or 3, 2 times a day, and I might train 1.5 times the entire time I'm there. So I shoot high, but I don't hold myself to it because it's vacation.
Yeah, it's a vacation.
Yeah, you got to give yourself a rest.
I don't mind going to the gym on vacation. It's not a priority. I'm starting to realize what people are like. Nobody can wait for these gyms to open. I'm like, really? You know, you can't do something at home with a couple of dumbbells and a barbell?
Yeah.
You've got to remember, you're speaking to a guy who built everything that I had at home.
Yeah, I think it's a good break. I was planning on taking a couple of months anyhow. I was listening to Lou Ferrigno today. He's being interviewed by his daughter, and she said, well, what do you do now? He says, you know, I still train. I train the way I used to, but it's a lot less sets, and the reps are between 14 and 16. So not that he's going through the motions, but he doesn't want to tax his joints anymore. As far as you go, John, you talking about gaining some weight to get back to where you were. Do you train differently than you did when you were competing now?
Well, Michael, I'm not trying to explain it this way. When you look at MMA, it's not one fighting art, is it? The best MMA guys, you know, are good at boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. So what style is the best style of fighting? So I tend to think my training is like the MMA. You know,
yeah.
I've done this type of training. I've done this type of training. I know it all. I can mix it all together. So yeah, there was a time where I did the heavy duty, low sets to failure, and I've also made great gains doing volume. So it really depends. Like that 10-year period that Arnold took to get to the movie. So like over the next couple of years, I'm going to be doing stuff, and there's certain parameters that I want to reach. But you know what? If something gets in my way, I'll jump over it and do something else.
Well, you're not stuck on dogma. There's some people, they have to do the same things all the time. That classic question you mentioned earlier, you weren't a good bencher. I was a terrible bencher. But people still ask, what do you bench? I mean,
yeah,
they're not even in the ballpark as far as thinking, the thinking man's bodybuilder or builder of the body. Because not everybody's a competitive bodybuilder, but everybody you work with, you're helping them build their body, fortify their body, add good things to their body. Whereas they come in with the mindset they want to take away, they want to strip weight from the body, they want to starve themselves. The body becomes under attack, and of course, they become more unhealthy, and they have initial success, and they go right back. And you don't want to be part of that, obviously, because that's non-success.
No, I've got a reputation, and that's the one thing. If I can see this person's going to embarrass me,
that's
we
right.
have a long talk, and I can actually find you another trainer. But this is no good for either of us.
No.
It's going to be a win-win situation.
Right. You have to be around that, and it breeds, success breeds success. And then, when we had when we had the clinics, what's that?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's a lot of older people. There's a lot of older people that realize as they age, they're going to lose lean tissue.
Right.
So if one of them comes to me and they know what they're after, and they're doing nothing except maintaining what they have or adding to it and getting a little bit stronger. Like I got a 71-year-old who can do 45 chin-ups.
Wow. That's unreal.
Yeah.
No kidding. Male or female?
It's a male. He understands. Wow. I've explained to him, as we move through the years, the lean tissue declines. We should do the opposite. We need to increase it or hold it. Right. So, he set himself this task of, wanting to be the world chinning champion. He's probably going to do it.
Wow.
He can do 45 consecutive chin-ups. 71.
That's like reeks of like world record level. You mentioned Jack LaLanne earlier in one of the, is this me? I'm sorry. No, I can't get that. Jack LaLanne, this is actually Denise. I'm going to hang up on her, but she'll get over it. Jack LaLanne said the reason a man at perhaps 71 can no longer do the 50 push-ups he did at 21 was because somewhere along the line he stopped. So
exactly.
If you never stop and there's no other mitigating circumstances getting you injured or sick or ill, there's no reason why you can't do almost the same stuff when you're older. I mean, this guy seems like to be an example of that.
He is the perfect example. In his head, age is just a number.
Right. So in other words, he's fantastic just for a human, not for a 71-year-old. Just like the kid who said to me, "Hey, you look good for your age."
I mean, nobody else in the gym, guys that are on steroids, younger guys, light, heavy, big, small, no one can do what he does.
John, I'm sorry. Hold on. Denise, I'm still on. Denise. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm doing a video. I can't talk. Oh, sorry, man. Anyway, well, we kind of play fast and loose here. Well, John, listen, this has been great. We're a little over an hour. So anything else you want to add? This is really fantastic. I mean, you're a part of history. I just want to mention Betty Wiley. Hi, Betty. Joe Toth. No, we love the train. We love how it makes us feel. And Joe, you're like stone, man. You're like carved out of rock. John Terilli would love you, I'm sure. John Terilli loves everyone. He's one of the nicest guys. And let me tell you, when you visit www.johnterilli.com or classicbody.com, do not swear. Maintain yourself with proper comportment, because Dr. Dusa was warned one day Doctor, it's wonderful to have you here.
Michael, tell me
Sorry, John, go ahead.
Tell me once in Joe Weider's magazine where you saw a swear word.
Never.
All those years, we never saw one swear word in his magazines.
Not necessary. And you know, it's funny. I've got a business on YouTube. I stopped swearing. I just don't swear anymore because it's not necessary. Plus, on YouTube, they find any reason to yank you if there's too much of that.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things. If it doesn't help, just don't do it. You know, it's like when Arnold's parents called him and he was a young guy and he was out in the world, they were worried. He said, everything I'm doing is conducive to the goal. So you got to ask yourself, does that help? Well, here's one. Robbie Robinson, when he competed in the Olympia, they said one of the things he did wrong was he had this big afro and he got mad. They thought they were being racist with him, but no, it made his shoulders look less wide. So don't do the things that are going to hold you back. I'm kind of getting on a limb here, but yeah, if it doesn't help, don't do it, you know. But no, I felt bad. You said, hey, we want to keep you here, Dr. Dusa, but please don't swear. So I stopped swearing. So I'm just telling the people, you go there, because John's a really nice, he's a gentleman, and he'll give you his time. And listen, to get a person like this, to get a hold of him, you know, you're talking to somebody who's among the best ever. So, you know, you want to get some of that somehow, and maybe you improve yourself. But that's what I think, John, about you. You know, here I am, I'm able to talk to you. And that's, you know, I used to see you in the magazines. And I saw you on that cover when you were shocked to see yourself on the cover. Was that a front lat spread or a double bicep?
Yeah, it was a front lat spread.
Yeah, I remember that.
On OLYMPIAN.
I was like, wow, did you ever meet Frank Zane?
No, I was in the gym when he was in the gym, and you know, I saw him. He may have seen me, but we never spoke. I've not spoken to him. No. Yeah,
kind of a quiet guy, but you know, you were like, you could have been like the new Frank Zane, or oh well, you were yourself. You know, that's But anyway, I really want to thank you. This is fantastic. Listen, everybody, again, classicbodybuilding.com. You want to check that out. That's the Facebook group.
That's a Facebook group, classicbodybuilding.com.
Yeah,
we don't have a website for that yet.
No.
The website is www.terilli.com.
And can people contact you, like send you a message?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Any of those other mediums. Anybody who feels like contacting me, I will get back to them.
Well, that's a good thing. Some people don't, and they're in business, and you wonder why. I consult with some businesses, and you know, one guy had 300 responses to his post, and he didn't respond to one person. I said, "Why are you doing this?" I don't have the time. I go, somebody might be clinging to life, and you're their hero, and you just saying hello or acknowledging them. And you know what? Lying might be a useful tool. Maybe this guy looks terrible. Tell him he looks good, and maybe. Yeah. Or find something good to say. You know, be that crackling thunderbolt of light in the darkness. And he didn't hire me because he didn't like that. But you know, if you wanna be, like we said, stuck on dogma, you're gonna dig your trench. John, thanks again. Any parting words?
Thank you.
Yes.
Michael
No, this was fantastic. Thanks so much, John. We're gonna sign out, but I'll send you a message, okay? We'll talk again soon. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. We're going to see you with Porter Cottrell. Then we got Will Brink, and we've got Dan Solomon coming up too from the Mr. Olympia. So we got a lot of good people coming, and they're all in that rarefied air that just like John Terilli trods to this day. Thanks, John. Have a great night.
Thank you. You take care.
All right.